do women really want? It sounds like a simple question, until you look beneath the surface, beneath words, beneath appearance, and into something far more subtle. Instinct. What if the real answers aren't spoken, but sensed? Today on Deep Thought Realm, we're exploring the hidden patterns behind female psychology, unconscious preferences that influence attraction long before a word is spoken. This isn't about tips or tactics, it's about awareness, about decoding the behavior that seems random, but is anything but. Because sometimes the strongest pull comes from the quietest signals. Let's begin. Have you ever asked yourself why some men, without saying much, without even trying, effortlessly catch a woman's attention while others get overlooked no matter how hard they try? What if the answers aren't in the obvious places? What if female psychology is shaped by cues most men aren't even aware of? And here's the real question. Could understanding the hidden layers of female behavior actually make you not just more attractive, but more aware, more grounded, and more powerful? Today on Iron Will Society, we're diving into the lesser-known truths of women's preferences. Not surface-level tips, but deep-rooted psychological principles that shape how attraction and connection actually work. Forget the noise. Let's look deeper. Before you speak a single word, before a smile or a gesture, your presence is already saying something. And women, often without realizing it themselves, are reading it with precision. This isn't about cockiness or rehearsed swagger. It's about subconscious confidence, a silent internal knowing that you are enough, with or without validation. Psychologically, this ties to the concept of nonverbal dominance signals. Your posture, eye contact, movement, and micro-expressions. Studies show women can interpret these cues within milliseconds, not consciously but evolutionarily. It's part of an ancient survival mechanism. If a man radiates internal security, it hints at emotional resilience, strength, and leadership. These are not social preferences, they are biological instincts rooted in thousands of years of human behavior. Stoic thinkers understood this long before psychology named it. Marcus Aurelius didn't talk about alpha males, he talked about standing still in the face of chaos. That stillness is confidence, not performative, not loud, but deep. A man who doesn't need to impress tends to leave the strongest impression. And that energy? It's read instantly, not through what you say, but through how you show up. Here's the truth, if you're waiting for the perfect line, the perfect approach, the perfect moment, you've already lost her attention. Because the real attraction happens before any of that, at the level of energy, presence, and grounded self-assurance. And that's a power that can't be faked. It must be forged. Many men focus on appearing tough, collected, or stoic in the most superficial sense, thinking that emotional distance is strength. But for women, especially on a subconscious level, it's not emotional silence that signals masculinity. It's emotional intelligence. The ability to feel without being ruled by feelings, to listen without the need to fix, to hold space for emotion without being threatened by it. That psychologically signals something powerful: safety. From an evolutionary psychology standpoint, women are wired to scan for indicators of security. Not just physical protection, but emotional and psychological consistency. Why? Because throughout human history, a woman's survival and the survival of her offspring often depended on a partner who could handle stress, adapt to challenges, and remain composed in the face of emotional intensity. Emotional intelligence isn't soft. It's strategic strength in action. A man who can regulate his emotions, stay grounded during conflict, and empathize without losing himself sends out a message: I'm in control of my inner world. And that control creates space for trust to grow. In contrast, a man who is reactive, dismissive, or emotionally unavailable triggers uncertainty. Even if he's successful or charming, the connection feels unstable. And instability is a signal for risk, something women are biologically attuned to avoid when choosing who to invest in. Stoic philosophy supports this deeply. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." True strength is proven when emotions rise, but you remain steady, not numb, not robotic, just centered. That kind of calm, emotionally aware presence is rare and incredibly attractive, because it shows that you don't fear emotion, you've mastered it, and that mastery makes you safe to open up to. In the end, emotional intelligence is not about being soft-spoken or overly sensitive. It's about clarity under pressure, the ability to navigate emotional terrain with both firmness and grace. And for many women, whether they're fully conscious of it or not, that signals a level of mature masculinity that no amount of wealth or bravado can imitate. Ambition is often praised as a magnetic trait, and while it does carry weight, what truly resonates on a deeper level with women is direction, clarity of purpose. See, any man can talk about wanting more out of life, but very few can articulate where they're going, why they're going there, and what they're willing to sacrifice along the way. That clarity, it's rare, and it commands attention, not just admiration. Psychologically speaking, women are not only attracted to potential, they're attracted to trajectory. In other words, not just where you are, but where you're headed. This is especially true on a subconscious level. A man who is anchored in purpose, who wakes up with intentional goals, exudes a sense of stability and forward momentum. That momentum suggests he's not stagnant, he's evolving. And to a woman, being around that energy signals progress, safety, and leadership. This doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out, but it does mean that you have a North Star, something bigger than yourself that guides your decisions. Stoic thinkers like Epictetus emphasized this idea. He said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." A man with direction isn't just chasing money or status. He's building a life with meaning, and that makes his presence feel different, grounded, composed, intentional. What separates direction from vague ambition is structure. It's not just about talking big, it's about doing consistently. Women feel the difference. A man with direction doesn't need to boast, because his discipline speaks louder than his words. He makes fewer promises, but he follows through. He doesn't need permission to pursue his path. He simply walks it. And that silent confidence, it's powerful. In essence, direction is attractive because it shows a man is not waiting for life to happen to him. He's shaping it. He's choosing his path, taking responsibility, and owning the journey. That kind of man isn't just interesting, he's inspiring. And in a world full of distracted, drifting minds, that kind of clarity feels like gravity. When most people hear the word dominance, they picture something loud, assertiveness, control, maybe even intimidation. But in the psychological reality of attraction, it's often the subtle form of dominance that has the deepest impact. The man who doesn't need to prove he's in charge but naturally leads. The one who speaks calmly but decisively. The one whose presence alone shifts the energy of a room, not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. Women are exceptionally attuned to this. Research in evolutionary psychology shows that while overt aggression might grab initial attention, it's calm, controlled dominance that sustains attraction. It signals competence, self-mastery, and confidence that's been earned, not performed. A man who moves slowly but deliberately, who speaks less but with more weight, unconsciously tells the world, I am in control of myself and of the situation. That's the kind of energy women associate with security and leadership. This subtle dominance is often most evident in how a man handles pressure. Does he stay composed in chaos? Does he listen more than he talks? Can he remain unshaken when others are reactive? That kind of quiet power doesn't show up in arguments or performances. It shows up in stillness, in posture, in tone. It's the ability to assert without aggression, to lead without force. And that balance is what makes it magnetic. It feels safe and strong at the same time. Stoic philosophy speaks directly to this kind of power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, your strength is not in how hard you push, it's in how little you're shaken. That unbothered energy, the kind that doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't escalate, isn't just admirable, it's rare. And in that rarity lies its attraction. Ultimately, the man who doesn't need to prove his dominance often has the most of it. Because true strength is quiet. It's not afraid of being misunderstood. It doesn't chase validation. And for women who are tired of ego-driven energy, this kind of calm, stable presence becomes not just attractive, but irresistible. We often hear that women are attracted to mysterious men. But what does mystery actually mean in psychological terms? It's not about being evasive or manipulative. It's about maintaining a sense of independence, a sense that no one, not even the woman who knows you best, can fully define or contain you. That mystery doesn't come from playing games. It comes from having a rich inner world that doesn't constantly seek approval or explanation. Psychologically, mystery activates curiosity. The human brain is wired to pursue what isn't fully known, especially when it senses value behind that unknown. For women, this often translates into fascination with a man who isn't always explaining himself, who isn't trying to overshare or win validation through constant emotional exposure. A man who is open, but only to a point, who reveals himself not because he's trying to be liked, but because he chooses to, and knows when not to. Stoicism aligns perfectly with this idea. The Stoics didn't believe in emotional coldness. They believed in emotional discipline. As Epictetus put it, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. The Stoic man doesn't feel the need to be fully understood by the world. He lives by internal values, not external affirmation. And that unshakable self-possession becomes, paradoxically, mysterious. Because most people are so transparent in their need to be seen. The mysterious man leaves space. Space for wonder, space for discovery, space for someone else to lean in and ask deeper questions. And that space is where real tension builds. The good kind. The kind that says there's more here than you can see. Women are naturally drawn to that depth. Not because you're hiding, but because you're not broadcasting. You know how to hold some of yourself back, and that restraint is powerful. In the end, mystery is about maintaining your sovereignty. It says, you can get close, but you'll never own me. You'll never fully map out who I am. And that's not cold, that's captivating. Because in a world where everyone's trying to be fully known instantly, the man who carries a bit of the unknown becomes unforgettable. In a world that's constantly shifting, where people say one thing and do another, consistency has become a rare form of strength. And for women, especially those looking for something meaningful, it's one of the most attractive traits a man can have. Why? Because consistency is the visible form of integrity in motion. It says, you can count on me, not just once, but every time. Psychologically, consistency creates predictive safety. The human brain is wired to seek patterns. It wants to know what's coming next, especially in relationships. When a man is consistent in how he speaks, acts, and responds, he sends out a very clear message. I am stable, I am reliable, I am whole. That reliability isn't boring, it's foundational. It allows attraction to evolve beyond chemistry and into trust. And once a woman trusts you, that's when desire deepens. Many men confuse excitement with unpredictability, thinking that being inconsistent keeps a woman guessing. But unpredictability can easily slip into emotional instability. And that's not attractive, it's exhausting. A consistent man, on the other hand, knows who he is. His values don't shift with mood or moment. He doesn't ghost when things get hard or change personalities depending on who's in the room. He is steady because he's anchored. This is exactly what Stoic philosophy teaches. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." A consistent man doesn't talk about what he could be. He lives it. Day in and day out, his presence becomes predictable in the best way, not because he's robotic, but because he's disciplined in his character. And over time, that discipline creates emotional security, and that security creates space for connection to flourish. Ultimately, consistency may not get loud applause. It may not be flashy or dramatic, but in the eyes of a woman who values depth, it speaks volumes. It says, "This man is real." And in a world of temporary highs and collapsing connections, a man who can hold the line becomes unforgettable, not because he tries to be, but because he simply is. In a world filled with curated personas, filtered images, and scripted charm, authenticity has become a quiet superpower. Women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to emotional alignment. They feel when a man is real, and when he's playing a role, the irony. So many men try to impress by putting on a version of themselves they think women want, not realizing that what's real is always more compelling than what's perfect. From a psychological standpoint, authenticity is associated with emotional congruence, the alignment between your inner world and your outer behavior. When your words match your energy, when your actions reflect your values, you become trustworthy without even trying. And for women, trust isn't built through perfection. It's built through presence, through small, consistent signals that say, "What you see is what you get." That kind of clarity is rare and refreshing. Authenticity also allows for imperfection, and that's what makes it attractive. A man who owns his flaws, who laughs at his mistakes, who doesn't mind being misunderstood or even disliked, shows that he's not living for external validation. That kind of emotional freedom is powerful because it implies something deeper. I approve of myself first. And that inner self-approval gives him a relaxed, grounded presence that women gravitate toward. The Stoics lived this principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." To be authentic is to stop performing. It's to stop chasing other people's definitions of strength, success, or masculinity, and instead embody your own. That embodiment might be quieter, less polished, even misunderstood, but it's real. And what's real has staying power. In the end, authenticity isn't about oversharing or being emotionally raw all the time. It's about alignment, knowing who you are, accepting who you are, and showing up with that truth. Everywhere you go, that type of man doesn't just attract interest. He invites depth, because in a world full of actors, being real is revolutionary. There's a kind of power that doesn't raise its voice, doesn't react, doesn't need to prove anything. That power is calmness, and in the female psyche, it often registers as one of the most attractive and grounding male traits. Not because calm men are passive, but because they are in control of their thoughts, their emotions, their energy. In a chaotic world, that control radiates safety, direction, and confidence without saying a word. Psychologically, calmness is interpreted as high-status behavior. Studies in behavioral science suggest that those who remain composed in tense or unpredictable situations are often perceived as more competent, dominant, and trustworthy. Why? Because our brains associate emotional regulation with resourcefulness. If a man can stay calm under pressure, a woman instinctively senses this man won't collapse when life gets hard. That's not just attractive, it's essential for long-term connection. Stoic philosophy is built around this exact concept. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that the external world can be chaotic, but the inner world must remain still. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." A calm man isn't avoiding stress, he's absorbing it, processing it, and choosing his response. That choice is what sets him apart. It shows discipline, mastery, and most importantly, presence. Calm men aren't boring. They're observant, they're grounded, they listen before speaking. They respond instead of reacting. And this calm presence creates something rare: emotional stability. For women, especially in a world where emotional volatility is normalized, this kind of man becomes a sanctuary. A calm presence tells her that chaos won't be met with more chaos. That no matter what storm may come, you'll hold the line. In the end, calm isn't just a feeling, it's a message. It says, I don't need to control everything outside of me because I've already mastered what's inside. And that message is louder than any performance, louder than any flex, louder than any sweet talk, because in the quiet stillness of a calm man lies the echo of real strength. It's easy to talk about what you want, but what you accept in people, in behavior, in your environment, reveals who you truly are. And women are deeply tuned into this. One of the clearest psychological signals of self-respect and long-term value is a man's standards. Not just what he demands from others, but what he quietly refuses to tolerate. From a psychological lens, this ties into boundary-setting behavior. People with clear, consistent standards are viewed as more confident, more emotionally stable, and more desirable because they signal that they've done the inner work to define what aligns with their values. A man who has standards doesn't just attract women, he attracts respect. He's not easily swayed by looks, flattery, or pressure. His compass is internal, not reactive. Women subconsciously test for this, not maliciously but biologically. They want to know, will this man fold under pressure? Will he compromise his values just to keep the peace? When a man holds to his standards, whether it's in how he's treated, how he spends his time, or who he lets into his life, it shows emotional maturity and internal leadership. And that kind of leadership isn't controlling, it's clarifying. It tells her, this is what I expect, not because I'm arrogant, but because I know my worth. The Stoics lived by this principle without ever using the word standards. Marcus Aurelius lived by duty, not desire. Epictetus taught that external approval is fleeting, but self-respect is eternal. A Stoic man doesn't demand perfection from others, but he refuses to abandon himself just to be accepted. And when a woman sees that kind of unwavering clarity, she may challenge it, but she will absolutely respect it. In the end, standards are not rules you place on others. They're reflections of what you've chosen for yourself. They are quiet statements that say, I've done the inner work, I know what aligns, and I won't settle for less. That kind of man doesn't just stand out, he stands firm. And that firmness in a world full of compromise becomes deeply attractive. What draws women in often isn't loud. It's not what you say or even what you do, it's how you carry yourself. How steady you are when no one's watching. How well you know who you are without needing permission to be him. In this episode, we explored the psychology behind hidden female preferences. Not the obvious, but the powerful. If something here made you pause, made you rethink, then you're already moving differently. This is Deep Thought Realm, a space for men who seek clarity, not noise. Men who value depth over distraction, awareness over assumption. Until next time, stay grounded, stay observing, and above all, stay real.